This is the largest uncontrolled experiment in human history. We have no idea what's going to happen as we kind of graduate students that have not learned the basics. They just learned how to outsource that to the AI. 90% of kind of the software engineering space is now automated. We have agents that can do it. We have AI that can write code better than any of us in here. So the way that we educated people for the last 100 years, that model is dead. AI has absolutely destroyed that wall, completely destroyed that wall when it comes to that. People can start and launch successfully one-person businesses that can make millions of dollars if you use AI to enhance your capabilities. You have a technology now that literally can take all of the value that you bring to the table,
right,
and you're saying, I'm not interested.
So how do I stay afloat?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Honest Work Studio podcast. Today, we are joined by an absolute powerhouse who saw the potential of blockchain and AI before they became buzzwords. He's a professor, researcher, and a startup founder. Currently, he is the visionary behind Living.ai, an innovative company building synthetic employees to help businesses completely reimagine and automate their highest value workflows. Get ready for a masterclass on the future of the workforce. Let's dive in with Dr. Ernesto Lee.
You're a professor,
I
a
am.
startup founder, a researcher, a CTO, and an NSF grant co-investigator all at once. Which one of these feels most like you?
Oh, okay. Boy, it sounds like a lot when you say it. When you say all of that, yes. But most like me is definitely CTO. It's the business side of this is really what drives me.
Mm-hmm.
But probably right after that, it's going to be a professor. Because that's just that's my life's work. I come from a long line of teachers,
Right.
and so that's kind of what we do. We believe that education is a human right. So all throughout human history, people gatekept knowledge and information.
True.
So that's my passion. My life's work is to learn how to make money and then to spread the wealth.
That's great, sir. You have been in the space for 30 years, and before the blockchain was cool or AI was the buzz, what did you see that was coming before people around you did?
In blockchain?
In both blockchain and AI.
And AI. Okay, so two things. So for blockchain, what really got me is there was a guy that used to live down here in South Florida named Bernie Madoff. And Bernie Madoff was an investor, and he had billions of dollars that went into a hedge fund that he managed. And what he would do is he would basically fake the books and then send people fake results of the investments that they had done with Bernie Madoff. Billions of dollars. He was just stealing money from them, billions of dollars. And what I realized at the time when all of this was going down, I think it was actually right here in Boca, now that I think about it.
Which year was that?
2016, 2017, somewhere
okay,
around there. I don't remember the exact year, but I do remember that when all of that happened, you have this guy that's just stealing money. What he was able to do is he was able to basically go into a database, if we just boil it down, and just change the numbers. I gave you $1 million to invest on my behalf, and then he would just lie, go into the database and just fake the numbers and then send people whatever report that he wanted to send them.
Got it.
And then I realized that when this blockchain technology came out, this blockchain technology was about initially just shipping cryptocurrency. But then I started thinking, man, what makes cryptocurrency valuable is that the trust layer is in there. You can't fake it. So I started thinking about Bernie Madoff. If Bernie Madoff was on a blockchain, then that means that he would never be able to fake
the ledgers.
You'd never be able to update, the ledgers without everybody seeing. So that trust and that transparency was just there baked into the infrastructure. And I knew that technology was way beyond cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is a fraction of the use cases where this is useful. Even now, when you look at it, people look at the crypto market, but the part that they don't see is that there's so many technologies that's just built on that trust and transparency layer. If Bernie Madoff had that, then I could invest $1 million with him. I can look at the ledger and see exactly where he invested every nickel of the money that I had. There'd be I wouldn't have to rely on his reports to see what was going on.
Correct.
I'll give you another quick example if I can.
Sure, sir.
So the very first project that we did when we launched our blockchain company is we went to Walmart in Northeast Arkansas. And they had a problem where they would have spinach that
Okay.
would go bad, and then people would get sick, and then they would have to go through their entire supply chain and just get rid of all of the spinach.
So inventory management was the point there.
Was huge.
Was
And
huge.
so then they realized that, man, if we have the blockchain, then we can have provenance. We can track the spinach, every single crate of spinach everywhere. And so if spinach goes bad in one crate, then we know exactly what crate to isolate. We don't have to throw away
All the spinach.
millions of dollars in inventory,
Wow.
and then we can isolate it and saves the company billions of dollars just because they can trace that spinach. So that's what trust and transparency do. People only think of the cryptocurrency space, but they miss all of the parts where the blockchain will just save you so much money when you can see every single part of the transaction.
Absolutely. The follow-up question from the explanation that he gave us just now. I've been studying the different consent mechanisms that's involved into blockchain, and while working in that proof of work and proof of stake as being the most prominent consent mechanisms all over the world. So when I was designing, like I said, about the blockchain project that I was building, I wanted to have a Byzantine fault tolerance modified in our own requirement for the project, and then we were designing a system like that.
Yeah.
So what kind of system that you use to address this particular problem? I probably think it's proof of work, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. So for that would from what you just described, that definitely is sounding like proof of work.
Yes.
So the challenge with the proof of work is that we start running into
the 51%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the issue that we have there.
Okay, sir.
All right. So right now the last question, it went somewhere else in my head. So can you define in 60 seconds what blockchain even means?
Sure. Okay. So with blockchain, the easiest way I think that people can grasp blockchain is just imagine a database.
Okay.
Simply imagine a database, except this is a database where it is write only and read only. Period. That's it. If you look at it from that perspective, every concept at a high level for blockchain just falls out. And just that one pivot means that you can never edit any of the data that goes into the blockchain, which means that you can trust the transactions. Every transaction that goes through the blockchain, once it's there permanently. So there's no fraud. That is the greatest fraud detector ever. There's no fraud because everybody can see the blockchain, number one. And number two is transparent. If both of us are involved in a transaction, we agree on what that transaction is. We can say these are the rules for the transaction. We call that a smart contract. And then whenever we do the transaction, that transaction goes onto the blockchain or this specialized database. And it can never be updated.
Okay. A follow-up question to that is, so there was a huge uprise and understand in the marketing of blockchain and cryptocurrency. I think it was in 2015, 2016, around that time.
Right.
So what happened? 10 years down the line, I don't hear a lot of blockchain and AI right now. Or maybe I'm in the wrong spaces. But
No. So two things happened. So one, the timing was just perfect for blockchain because we had just had a huge global meltdown where we thought structurally our whole system was about to collapse. And so all this money is just pouring out of the system.
Right.
And so then people said, hey, I need a safe place to store my money. And at that exact same time, that's when blockchain came out. So it gave people an alternative way to store their money. And that's why blockchain just exploded. It wasn't just that the idea was there. The timing of it was just absolutely perfect and it exploded. A lot of the crypto use cases, and you say, you haven't heard as much about it, but I would say that it's $1 trillion economy now.
Okay.
Blockchain is. And the fact, do you think that the banks would allow $1 trillion to exit their system to go into
No.
People were, that was a really big deal. So it's still there and it's not going anywhere. As you look at all the instability around the world, that's still the safe zone for, it's right up there with gold and other, other commodities like that.
Maybe I'm coming from the point of listening to a lot of cryptocurrency scams and frauds. So I was more banking on that might be the reason why there is no more marketing for blockchain and cryptocurrency.
It's definitely two things. So it's definitely received a lot of, because of the scams, it has definitely received a lot of bad press when it comes to that. But the utility around it still makes it absolutely indispensable in certain use cases. So for certain use cases where trust and transparency are paramount, there is nothing that comes close to that. What has started to happen has been less of a technological reframing than it is a marketing reframing. So it's still there. They just don't call it blockchain.
Okay. And now what do they call it?
Secured networks.
Okay, got it.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
So, like when you were like explaining how people and the banks were especially scared about moving their trillions of dollars of funds into cryptocurrency, especially into bitcoins, which were like really famous in 2000, maybe 18, and started booming up a huge amount. I had a question in my mind, like what made people trust bitcoins more as a safer transaction, and like what kind of gave them that particular trustworthiness that they move their funds from bank accounts to Bitcoin currency?
So it's the disintermediation piece of that. So whenever we do a transaction, then what has to happen is that we need a third party to sit out there to validate the transaction, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So what has happened is that who is that third party whenever we do a transaction? I mean, if you go all the way back to the end of World War II, the U.S. was the victor, was the sole superpower in World War II. I mean, I don't say we were, we were part of a collective of the victors on that side. And so there, if you look at the global economy at that point, the global economy depended upon the U.S. dollar. So then you get the dollar being preeminent across the world.
Correct.
And so when they rebuilt even Europe, they made sure that the foundation of the global economy rested on the U.S. dollar. And that's the preeminent position that the U.S. still holds to this day. So what that means is that whenever we do a transaction, somewhere along the lines, in most cases, is backed by the U.S. dollar.
Okay.
And so what we're saying is that we don't trust we trust the U.S. government to step in and enforce, the rules of our transaction. And it's not even the U.S. government that we're saying we trust. We're saying that we trust the U.S. military, more specifically, to do that transaction. So as the trust in government fails, then we're saying, hey, how do we trust, Bitcoin, right? And really what it is, as you lose a little bit of trust in, governments to be in the middle of your transactions. The beauty in this is that what you're saying that you trust is you trust the network. Because of the transparency and because of the fact that we know that once we do a transaction, it can't be modified, there's no fraud. I don't need a third party to come in and validate my transaction. I know that if you and I exchange Bitcoin, I know that it's persistently there, it's instant. Well, it takes a couple minutes or a couple hours, but relatively
it's quite fast. It's quite fast.
Absolutely. So that's what I'm saying. I trust. I trust the network. I trust the technology. I trust math. And the beauty of it is that I can even get my own node, my own copy of the database, so to speak, and I can run it myself, so I can look in real time and see what's going on. So I trust my own eyes. I trust math, and that's better in a lot of cases than trusting a third party.
Absolutely. I think the audience got a beautiful answer for that.
So let's step back a bit.
Yes.
And go back to who you are and where you started.
Sure.
So you started teaching at Northern Virginia Community College in 1998.
Yep.
Then went to IBM, Oracle, Bank of America. So what kept pulling you back to the classroom?
So my all my ancestors were teachers. So I'm African American, and as an African American, we were part of these people called FPOCs in the U.S., Free People of Color, in northeastern North Carolina. And so we had to start our own colleges. So several of my grandparents started historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs, out there in northeastern North Carolina and southern Virginia down there. Mm-hmm. And the only jobs that educated black women can get in America at the time was healthcare and nursing, or education and teachers. Right. And so I come from a long line of teachers from that role. So it's just always been in my blood. And they used to always tell me a couple of things. Only the educated are free. And education is a human right. And those were the two mantras that in my family was always preeminent, the value of education. And because of that, a lot of my research, it's always been open sourced. A lot of the knowledge that I have, I write books and publish these books in that same vein there. And so it's just something that I love to do. I love to, when people ask, what do you do? I don't say I'm a college professor because that kind of minimizes. There's many college professors. I talk in the value of what I do. And I like to think that I change lives for the better, right? That's what I try to anyway, right? So
That I agree with.
that's what pulls me back, back into the classroom.
Okay, so having that, like you said, your ancestors have been teaching,
Yes.
and you have education. Like, you have a greater concept of education than any of us over here.
Mhm.
So my question is, like, from the past history, maybe like past 100 years,
Mhm.
we have seen education being more or less the same and inside a classroom.
Mhm.
So going forward with the AI like booming up, assisting humans in the day-to-day life,
Mhm.
where do you see AI or education in practicality going up in the future?
So the way that we've educated people for the last 100 years, that model is dead.
Dead.
AI has absolutely destroyed that wall, completely destroyed that wall when it comes to that. And education right now is floundering to catch up with all of that. So there's a couple things that are going on. So you think about what's supposed to happen in the classroom, right? It's supposed to be our journey where we go from point A to point B, and we learn all of these things. But what happens specifically? I'll give you two answers. What happens specifically when you learn? When you learn, there's these neurons in your brain that start to fire. You're trying to grapple with something. You're trying to learn calculus or derivative or whatever. You're trying to learn something. You have to struggle to get through it.
Correct.
And there's neurons in your brain that's trying to learn the pattern, and we say neurons that wire together, fire together. That means that you've learned something, and there's a clump of neurons in your brain that represents that thing that you just learned.
Perfect.
And then you look at AI. What happens when all of that is just skipped over? So now you have a generation of folks that's going to college where you don't have that. The word I use in my book is called productive struggle. Productive struggle is the learning. That's what makes you. That's how you learn stuff. And when you go into, you have a technology that allows you to skip over that, it literally is messing with the wiring in your brain.
Perfect.
You don't learn it. What you've learned is you've learned how to outsource your cognition. You haven't learned whatever it is you're trying to learn. You've learned how to ask the AI for that. That is going to, if we're not careful, this is the largest uncontrolled experiment in human history. We have no idea what's going to happen as we kind of graduate students that have not learned the basics. They've just learned how to outsource that to the AI. That's a serious danger. The flip side of that is, and this is what I try to do in my classes, is there's two ways that you can interface with this. You can outsource your cognition. And if you do that, then cognitive rot will kick in immediately. Right. In fact, we've already seen this. If you even look at GPSs, there's so much research right now that shows people that rely on the GPS for their driving, their hippocampus is smaller. Right. Their spatial awareness is deficient because they've outsourced all of that navigation to the GPS. And if
I think I'm one of them.
Yeah, same.
I think I just totally depend on the Google Maps wherever I go.
Same. But what happens when we have AI and it happens at scale across everything?
Serious concern. It's a serious
everything. Concern. And so what I try to do, at least in my classes, is I try to take the opposite approach. I try to do this thing, in my book, we call it's meta prompting is what we do. If you use this thing appropriately, then it can enhance your capabilities. It can enhance your understanding. So as you grapple with something, as you try to learn something, if you quote meta prompt so that the AI assists you, the AI is your consultant and not your replacement, those people are going to blossom. That is the future. That's where education has to go. How can we create these AI enhanced humans? Because it's that AI human collaboration that's going to make all the difference in the world. There's two tracks, one of two tracks. The people that are cheating, using AI just to do stuff, you're just cheating yourself, and then the market will just weed you right out. Yeah. The people, because I like to think that I'm a superhuman because I can do things now I couldn't do before AI. The people can start and launch successfully one-person businesses that can make millions of dollars if you use AI to enhance your capabilities. Education hasn't caught up with that yet.
Right. But having a follow-up question again with that is that, like you said, the cognition of a human is not being used To be honest, on the personal side, I've been seeing AI like come into my education directly when I was doing my undergrad. So maybe in the year 2021, I started it, and I can see the AI was blooming up in 2022, and where my professors could see AI in their reports or any kind of like research papers. So honestly, I felt more satisfying getting my studies like done by myself, like putting in my efforts and then trying to solve the math and get things done. But in today's day, I'm not saying we're not doing it, but I'm just saying that we're skipping most of the part, like you said. So I kind of feel it's a concerning part for the future generation because they might lose the ability to even like do something like what we were doing, and that could actually collapse the civilization. Is what my thoughts were, but it's totally bizarre. What's your thoughts on that?
Same. I mean, I have young kids that are in 11, 15, and a 26-year-old. My 11 and 15-year-old, I don't let them use AI. I don't let them use AI at all because there two reasons. One, their brain is still forming. Number one, their brain's still forming. Your brain doesn't even finish developing until you're 22 years old. That's when it finishes. And so if your brain is still forming and you've outsourced your cognition, then that's going to impact you for life. We think, right? This is early on, right? This is the largest uncontrolled experiment ever. And so I don't let them use AI because I know that in a brain that's still forming, it is damaging to them to outsource their thinking. It will cripple them for life. That is
the shortcut.
Absolutely. And then they never learn the basics. And so what I think, and the research is still out on this, what I think is that you have to productive struggle. So my book is AI and the Art of Productive Struggle. You need to struggle through as your brain is forming. And then as you get into college, then at that point, then you have to look at how you can use AI to scaffold your thinking, to enhance your thinking, to start looking at bigger, broader problems. So for instance, if I want to learn calculus, I need to learn the fundamentals of calculus, period. If I need to learn physics, I need to learn the fundamentals, period. But then it reaches a point where I understand the fundamentals. Then it's not so much about the answers, it's about the questions. Then I can use AI to say, hey, I want to understand quantum chromodynamics and how I can apply that in this use case and also integrate AI with that. Now I understand the fundamentals. Now AI is helping me to expand on the base of knowledge that I already have. But it's important that you do it in the right order. It's important that you engage, because that's the biggest crime that we have right now, is if you look at cars. Cars are engineered beautifully. The cars, if you look at the engineering on a car, it's perfect. But I had 2 accidents on the way up here. I didn't have the accidents. I saw 2 accidents on the way up here. And I promise you, the accidents were not the fault of the engineers. The accident was the fault of the people, the drivers. And you look at AI is already engineered beautifully. But we haven't trained the people how to interact with it in the way where you can enhance your superpowers to make you a superhuman. That's the problem.
I really like the way you put AI enhance humans. That's such a good term. So if there is a policy that you would like the universities all over the world to have about AI, what would that policy be?
So the policy that I think have the biggest impact would be around assessments. Because right now, the way that education is set up, we're basically grading answers. And that is the wrong approach in my view. It's not about what you know, it's about how you think. And we're not grading the thinking process. So assessments have to change. So it's fine. In my classes, it's fine if you use AI, but I want to look at your prompt history. I want to see how you engaged AI. What was your contribution? Did you ask the AI to do everything? Did you just accept the outputs without thinking? Tell me how you got to the solution. The answers are cheap, free, and infinite. We can get answers anywhere now with AI. Where do you fit in this? And are you able to use AI in a way that enhances what it is? I need to make sure that learning has occurred. So assessments need to change. Assessments need to look more at the thought process, the thinking process, and less so at just the answers.
Okay.
I think professors like yourself and Dr. Fernando, coach, is quite like trying to implement that particular concept in your assessments in the final projects. So with that, I had a really interesting experience with Dr. Fernando, coach, in my previous podcast. We were talking the same about the AI policies that needs to be implemented so that people get a diverse understanding about how exactly it needs to be used. And again, having a reference to your previous point, when you said AI needs to be used after a certain age, giving a reference of your kids, how you're like growing them, which is really good. I feel AI is quite like a commodity which people need to use once, like something like gambling or something which is like, way more fun to do as adults. But then we don't understand that if teenagers get to have a chance on it, they might, get maybe they might misuse it in a wrong way and
Sure.
have a bad understanding about how it works. Because when we go for gambling, we don't know when to stop, but the kids might not really know and don't have a limit, and that might exploit them.
Yep.
So with that saying, but also on the contrary side of it, I feel that maybe if it is used with limitations to kids, it might help them enhance their research capabilities and get content more faster to get their cognitive capacities more expanded. So what's your thoughts on that?
So two things. So the premise, the predicate in your question assumes that you have teachers in place that can guide the students in their learning journey.
Yes.
I don't think that exists right now.
Okay.
I have not seen competent teachers. They're competent. They're great at what they do. They've just been trained in a model that is broken now. They don't understand it. They don't trust it. They're threatened by it. I've gone into many schools around here locally, and I've seen the attitude in a lot of places is the students are just using this to cheat. Right. And when you start with that premise, these are the people that I'm going to trust to train my kids on how to use it responsibly when they don't know how to use it. So I think that has to catch up first. We have to have a cultural shift first. And education is so weird too, because if you look out in industry, you're saying that from the perspective of, say, a business owner. And it makes perfect sense from a business owner. But inside of education, it's different because in education, it directly threatens what they do as professors, as teachers. It directly threatens them specifically. So they're uniquely challenged by this. And so there's a lot of resistance in education to say, we're just not going to use AI because a lot of people define who they are by what they do. And so this is an attack. It's an emotional attack on them, how they see AI. So until that changes, until we can have teachers that understand this well enough, where you have that intersection of AI and pedagogy and teaching come together, I think it'll be tough to get there.
That's an absolute great answer.
So you're coming from a perspective of already knowing about AI. You're very learned about it. But, I find a lot of people, they are not really into it.
Sure.
They have their experiences in another domain. So for people like that who are still wanting to get into AI, what do they do? How do they come to this conclusion that the system is broken?
How do they get there? So I'll go back to what I was saying about like cars and people. The cars are standardized, the people are not. And so we have this cognition, right? And so when we imagine this, well, let me answer your question in two ways. So first, I think that the people that are just blowing it off or they don't agree with it, I think they're doing themselves a massive disservice, just massive disservice, and the market will weed them out in the near future, is my opinion. And the reason I say that is because, and I'll answer the second part of your question in a second because I get asked that a lot. There's this thing that the economists call the knowledge tax, is what they call. So basically what the knowledge tax means is throughout human history, all markets that are based in the knowledge economy are based on me knowing something that you don't, or you knowing something that I don't.
True.
And people will pay for that.
Right.
That's the knowledge economy.
Right.
What happened when the internet came out? When the internet came out, that meant that if I'm a knowledge worker, if you're an engineer, for instance, or a data scientist or whatever, then the internet comes out, and now they've demolished that moat where access to information is now universal.
Right.
So we all have access to the same information. So if you're a knowledge worker, that will impact you directly. Every engineer, accountant, lawyer, everybody's impacted by that. So we thought that a lot of those fields were going to collapse.
Right.
That's not what happened. It certainly changed things.
Right.
Certainly changed things. But what we didn't recognize at the time is that the value that you provide as a professional engineer, data scientist, is more about access to data. Just because you can access WebMD doesn't mean you're a doctor.
Right.
So what is it that makes us valuable as knowledge workers. It's that we know how to synthesize this data.
Exactly.
You and I get access to the same data, then we can come to a more learned conclusion that somebody that doesn't know what to do with that data.
Correct.
So it impacts everybody. Now, what happens when a technology comes out that demolishes the synthesis part of that?
Right.
That can reason just like a medical doctor or a
Right.
PhD.
Right.
What does that do to knowledge workers?
Right.
So I'm looking at these knowledge workers out here and they're like, hey, I'm not interested. I don't like it. And I'm like, you're not seeing the big picture here. You have a technology now that literally can take all of the value that you bring to the table,
Right.
and you're saying, I'm not interested.
So how do I stay afloat?
So that's where the AI human collaboration comes into play, because that means that you have the ability to be a superhuman if you choose to. If not, then what you're going to do is you're going to waste your time doing stuff that the AI can do better, faster, and cheaper. And the rules of economics will just weed you right out. But the folks that will take this as an opportunity to say, hey, I can 10x, 100x my capabilities, my outputs, those are the people that are going to thrive.
Okay. So since, like you said, there could be, when human and AI coexist and start working together as professionals, can we expect a huge recession in the future, like where a lot of employees are being fired because maybe in the place of 100 people working right now, 10 people can do the job? So do you see that that'll be a really great concern for like regular students or people?
So the word I would use is disruption. So there will absolutely 100% there'll be a disruption. And I know it's not a popular thing to say, and I know that a lot of people try to shy away from that. But the fact is that every time something like this has happened, there's been disruption that happens. If I can, for like 5 seconds, just make this point. Go all the way back to the Industrial Revolution. What happened, right? We had machines, physical machines that can do the labor that humans and animals used to do.
Correct.
And so what happened when that happened? So what happened was there was no sense paying people to do something that a physical machine could do. It just made no sense to do that. In fact, the word sabotage comes from a guy who took his sabot, his wooden shoe, jammed his sabot into a machine, sabotage, because he hated the fact that this machine was doing the physical labor that he used to get paid to do. Okay. But what happened, there was huge disruption. Jobs are gone because machines could do something that humans used to do. But what happened was humans worked around that, and then they started to build new economies based off of that new technology, and that generated new jobs that came out. The problem was at the time, nobody had the foresight to even imagine, what those jobs would look like. You're an engineer. What good is it to be an engineer before we've conquered electricity? Nobody can even imagine what an electrical engineer was. And now you look here at what's happening at AI. AI is disrupting the market as we know it right now. However, the people are not just going to take the old way of doing business and jam AI into it. The businesses that are going to succeed in the future, they're going to be the ones that reimagine businesses altogether. And then there's going to be new roles that come out of that. And so we haven't seen that yet because we haven't gotten that far into the process. That's why I think the best thing now is for people to have expertise in an area and to be AI capable of that, because those roles are still going to be there, but we certainly won't need as much of them. And those will be the people that will be primed to move into the new workforce.
Could you give us a few examples of this expertise that you just mentioned? Like if we have to expertise ourselves in something, so what could it be?
Business, for instance. So I think right now a super valuable combination is to have a business background. So I think MBAs are going to explode. Business and a tech background. If you're an engineer undergrad, MBA grad, or a technical master's degree with business classes there, because those are, or marketing or something like that, because now we've commoditized things like programming.
Correct.
If you look at the space, 90% of kind of the software engineering space is now automated. We have agents that can do it. We have AI that can write code better than any of us in here.
True.
So it doesn't mean that programming's going away, but it certainly means that that space has been disrupted, 100%. But then you look at other places like law, medical, all of that. 5% of that space has been disrupted.
Right.
And so there's
Right.
massive opportunity to go in there and create agents and build businesses around that.
Right.
This is the perfect time to do that. So people that know a specialty, whatever it is, I had a lady in my AI for Business Innovation class. She has a family business where all that they do is they clean swimming pools in Palm Beach. That's their expertise. That's their
Right.
family business. And now they've combined AI with that.
Wow.
And so now they have agents that are going out there doing the marketing for them. They have agents that are handling their inbound calls. They're able to scale faster. They're able to just demolish their competition that's out there. So people that are AI enhanced, there's ample opportunity out there. And we even keep talking about the job market. It will be disrupted. Period. There's no doubt. In fact, you have to take my word for it. You look at the job numbers. The job reports don't lie. You can ask anybody out here, is it easy to find a job compared to your predecessors?
Not at all.
But then you look at the folks that are starting businesses. There are opportunities there for people to find a niche, create a business out of it, and you don't even need to complete the business. You just need to get it good enough to ask for money. And I have seen a lot of startups that have come out in this space.
So it's perfect that the conversation just naturally went towards the businesses aspect of stuff. So 8 months ago, you started up a company. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Is it Living.ai?
Living, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So you're building something called as synthetic employees.
Yeah.
So what specific business problem made you say, I have to build this now?
Yeah. So we were talking, for instance, about the Industrial Revolution and how this new technology comes around, and it doesn't mean that you take the existing business model and jam in the machines. It means you reimagine business models, totally reimagine them from scratch. So with AI, the idea was we need to totally reimagine how business operates. So looking 5 years into the future, I believe that most knowledge worker roles, most jobs will require you to sit at a desk and for you to be surrounded by synthetic employees.
Okay.
So you can see that it's already starting to move in that direction. We hear agentic AI, agents. How does that translate into the business world? It means that if I'm working at a digital marketing company and I'm trying to do brand voice, why am I going to sit there and do brand voice when I can just create a synthetic employee that can do it better, faster, cheaper than me and works for the entire organization? And it's already, and you can go on and on and on. Regardless of what your role is, every employee, I think, will always have their own staff of synthetic employees. And that's, you can look at, can I talk about Claude and Claude?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
So you can look at Claude. And I'm biased. I love Claude. I love Claude Code. I love Anthropic. But you look at how that translates to the business world. So let's think about from a business perspective. There's 4 quadrants, and one of my co-founders, Alex Schwartz, he's brilliant. He has this thing called the reality gap assessment. So you go into a business. You go into the business. There's really 4 things that you want to know. Number 1, you want to know individually, where does every individual employee stand? Where does every individual employee stand on the AI maturity metric? Let's say on the scale of 0 to 10, where are they? So he built an assessment that's backed by agents. Him and my other partner, Maddie Squarzoni. That you fill out the assessment, and then the agents will go in, and the agents will say on this maturity level, you're a level 1 or level 2 per employee. Then the second part is, where is your organization in their AI maturity journey? And this is going to be a level up, because now you're an employer. You can look and you can say, this is where all of my people are in their journey. And then you can also look at that and you can say, this is where we are in our organizational journey. So if we want to change our culture, this is what we need to know. And the third part, and this is where things start to really take a big turn. The third part is, what are your pain points per employee? Because now we know your pain points. Now we know where we can go in and we can start to apply AI solutions. Without that, we go into a company and they say, yeah, we've heard about AI, but we have no idea how it relates to us.
Right.
Well, now you hear the wisdom of the crowd, and then you can start to do a thematic analysis and you can see where people's pain points are.
Right.
And now you got the first ideas for where I can start to build these synthetic employees.
Right.
And the last one, which ties back to Claude, is going to be, tell me what your, and this is where we have to start thinking like business folks, tell me what your high value workflows are.
Okay.
What is it? You get paid to do what? What are the workflows? What's the business workflows that you do? Tell me that. So what does that translate to? The business workflows, they translate directly to a Claude, or to a skill, I should say.
Right. True. Yeah.
That's a skill.
Right.
And so now that I have this right here, now you can go into an organization and you can say, these are the pain points. And the pain points, by the way, are going to all be synthetic employees. These are your business workflows that drive revenue. And this is how I'm going to start to implement them. So then you look at, so that's your North Star.
Right. Got it.
Then from there, how do you implement that? Then I go in there and say, hey, tell me what your tools are. What do you access for these people to do their job? What do they need to do? What data do they need to access? Is an API server, a database, whatever?
Right.
What software do they need to do their job? They need to navigate the web. Do I need an agentic browser? Whatever. So that figure out their tools. Now that I got their tools, then I can create MCP servers for all of their tools, and then it just collapses beautifully. Because then I can go in and say, for every high value business workflow that you have, I can create a skill that uses the tools that copies exactly what this person is doing.
Right.
I'm not saying I still need that person there because their human judgment still matters, but then I can automate this part of the role.
Right.
I can take several skills, combine them together, and say, now I'm going to create a higher level abstraction that I'm calling a synthetic employee that has access to these skills, that can access these tools and data, and then you've created a synthetic employee.
So like living.ai basically goes to companies, figures out all the pay points, and tries to automate those things using MCP servers, and tries to channel them into a series of line, and then gets the product much better. Can we say it like that?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So, the concept is beautiful, but what is the first objection of a skeptical business owner throwing at you, and how do you answer it?
Sure. What we started doing, Alex Schwartz, my business partner, he owns human.com, behuman.com, human, HMN, or BEHMN.com. What he does is we put together a series of master classes for businesses down there in Miami, in Coral Gables. And in the beginning, we used to fight with business owners, and we tried to convince them that this is in your best interest, because what we're saying is, take your employees, take what generates you money, and we will automate that so that it automatically does that with the same consistency every single time. We were exhausted within the first probably 2 weeks of trying to convince people that this is in your best interest, because we reached a point that if you're not interested, then your competitor is. People that see the value in this, you don't have to convince them. So it was just a waste of our time and energy to convince people that, hey, we can create an employee that does these roles right here. It's simple math. We go in, how much do you pay for, I don't want to name any names on our customers, but there's one guy that does manages all the permits for the state of Florida. How much do you pay for one analyst? He pays $125,000. Then we start going and looking at the roles, and in that role, we're like, hey, we can automate this. And then we start looking at the roles, and we can automate 80% of this role right here. And you get the same quality. So we can do that, and for what we charge less than what they would pay one employee, but then they can create this synthetic employee that does the majority of that role. So when they start looking at just the unit economics of this, it's really it kind of sells itself at this point, honestly. And the truth is, There's so much work out there right now because people need that edge. You need to be competitive. You need to be efficient. You need to be able to have that consistency and quality, etc. So it has become less of a sales job, and more of the people that get it, they get it.
A personal question of mine.
Sure.
So basically, the answer that you gave is kind of a masterclass on how you do sales for a technical company. But my question is, one step back.
Sure.
I have been really feeling left out in terms of the AI race, coming from a background of engineering, right? So, and I have no experience in the real world because I have always been studying up until now.
Sure.
So, for someone like me, how could I have a profitable business idea and sell it out to customers and probably get my revenue up to $50,000 in a month?
Sure. So that's the $1 million question, right? You're saying 50,000 a month, but that is the $1 million question.
I overshot it, so that's how.
So here's the truth, right? So I've seen people succeed. I've seen people fail with this. The tough part in this, the reason why that's a hard question to answer is because people don't pay for technology, people pay for solutions. And so the first challenge is,
how do we know the problems?
How do you find the problems? And every niche, that's why I was saying, if you are a specialist in something where you can add the AI onto it, those people are more powerful than people that just know how to build the AI, because you can understand the problems. People are willing to pay for solutions. They're willing to pay for you to solve a pain. That's the challenge that people run into. For instance, there's a problem would be, Uber, Lyft. You live in New York City, the metro, taxis. People are like, hey, I have 5 different apps. I just want to go from point A to point B. That's a problem. Are people willing to pay for that? Sure. If you build an aggregator app that puts all of that in one pane of glass, it says this is the cheapest, this is the fastest. That's a problem that you've identified. So that's number one. It starts with identifying hear me when I say this, a real problem that exists, that people in your industry would all agree that this is a problem that exists, and it's scalable, and you know how to have a solution for it. Those are the ingredients that you need to have the genesis of a business that starts. And with AI, the idea is more important than the implementation, because once you have that idea, then I promise you can Claude code yourself a solution for that, where you can get something stood up. Yeah, that's number one. And then the second part of that would be, do you want to go the funding route, or do you want to have your business, or do you want to try to self-fund and start your business from there? If you want to go the investment route, then there's a whole separate process for that. You need to get your pitch ready. You need to understand the business model canvas. You need to understand, the 9 parts that all investors are going to be looking for. You have to understand that they don't fund technology, they fund businesses. And so you have to be able to speak in their language and put yourself out there and get shot down for 9, 10 pitches because you're asking for $2 million, $3 million. You only need to get lucky once, one time. But put yourself out there and just keep going time. And the pitch is only 7 minutes. You get yourself a 7-minute pitch on your idea, Claude code yourself a solution, and just go out there over and over and over again. And here's the thing. If you don't know how to give a good pitch, this goes back to what we were saying before about making yourself a superhuman. You sit down and you say, here's my idea, here's my pitch, here's the research on the people that I'm going to pitch to. What is it that's going to resonate with them? What is going to be my unique selling position? Who is going to be my ideal customer profile? And you just keep going over and over and over. And every time you don't get selected, that's another data point that's going to go into the model, and you're just going to keep going until you make it. If you decide that, hey, I'm going to, and I can't help people with figuring out whatever their idea is, right? That's something that you have to figure out where the solution is. But if you say, hey, I want to just grow this business without investment money, then you better get good at MarTech, marketing technology. That is we're starting. Me and I, me and my wife, we're starting a company called VibeReach.io.
Okay.
Because we realize that there's going to be a lot of people out here that will be able to start businesses, but will have no clue how to get customers.
Right. True.
So marketing technology is going to be the sleeper, because if you can conquer marketing technology, it doesn't matter if you're an engineer, it doesn't matter if you're selling pool supplies, it doesn't matter. You know the basics on how to pull customers in.
Right.
And so MarTech is the sleeper technology that everybody should get. I'm a sucker for Go High Level,
Right.
or HubSpot, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I love those because what they do is they give you a marketing platform in a box if you know how to use it.
Okay.
Fully automated. AI agents, you can build your Claude agents where you can integrate them. Outbound calls, inbound calls, emails, text messages, funnels, A/B test, everything that's built in. Spend your time mastering that.
Mm-hmm.
You have a product that you believe in. You put your MarTech in front of that. Then the last thing for you is to understand the unit economics on the marketing technology. Then you need to drive traffic to your funnels.
Right.
And you need to understand how much is it going to cost to drive the traffic? Where is it that your ideal customers live?
Right.
How much does it cost to, what's your cost, your acquisition cost per lead?
Mm-hmm.
You have to get good at those analytics there. You have to think like a business person.
Right.
How much is it going to cost? And then it's a numbers game. If I drive in 100,000 to my funnel, and I have a small percentage that actually fills out a form or asks to be contacted or engaged, and I have a small percentage of that. How much did it cost me to generate 100,000, and how many customers did I get out of that campaign?
Right.
And I fine-tune that a little bit,
Got it.
and then go out there and I start a new campaign.
Right.
And I just keep analyzing those numbers over and over again. But that requires a different level of thinking.
Yes.
If you're an engineer, we're used to sitting down there just focusing on quality.
I was about to
we don't take a second to sit back and say, how can I monetize this? What is the value that I'm bringing? Who am I even building this for?
Right.
How can I talk to them?
Right.
I mean, something as simple as, I'll hear all the time, ICP. Who is your ideal customer profile? You have an idea for a business. Who is it that you would sell that business? Who is it that would be a customer?
Right.
So when you were asking me, for instance, how do you convince people that if you're not convinced already that AI is going to have an impact on your business, you are not my ideal customer. I am not going to waste my time trying to convince you. It's only my ideal customers that already recognize the value, then we can talk. Because if I have to convince you, then that means you're not going to be willing to pay my rate.
Right.
That means that I'm a better fit for your competitor than I am for you.
Yeah.
So who is your ideal customer?
Mm-hmm.
And you go relentlessly for them.
Right.
And there's space there. Like you can look at IBM. You're never going to compete with IBM and Google and Microsoft.
Correct.
You're never going to compete with them because they're too big and they're servicing a different ICP.
Right.
But if you can identify a problem that your ideal customer agrees is a problem, you can say, hey, I'm not Google, but I'm relentlessly focused on this ideal customer niche right here.
Right.
And when you talk to them, they'll read your marketing and they'll be like, whoa, you're talking to me. Have you ever had that experience where you're like, this right here is speaking directly to me. I want to engage with them. That's because you are their ideal customer. If everybody else, they don't even exist. I don't even spend time trying to chase them.
In living.ai, because it was a really great concept that you had, I wanted to ask two questions. One is, how do you charge your customers?
Mm-hmm.
And how can people know more about approaching your company and getting those services to their market?
Sure. So the way that we price, two ways that we do it. So one, we'll do what we call a venture studio model. So let's say you're an established business, you got 10, 15 million in revenue, etc. We'll propose a model where we will set up a joint venture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The customer, they'll own 70%, we'll own 30%. They'll pay for the development, but we'll jointly own the asset, whatever it is. Maybe we're building an electronic health record system. Maybe we're building a LMS for them, but we're doing this new with agents, etc. So there's a joint model that we do. If we're going to do the automations, Usually what we do is there's a conversation where we don't, for us, right? People do it differently, but for us, we'll have a conversation on the front end, and then we'll ask them, because we want this to be performance-based, what are you paying right now?
Correct.
You're paying 100,000. Okay, and how often do you use it? So they'll say, right now this is costing me this much, and we'll say if we can create an automation that can do the same thing, we'll want a percentage of that. So we'll usually say, this is right here now is costing me $100,000 per year. 10 years, it's $1 million. Okay, great. We'll charge half of what you're spending in a year, so we'll charge $50,000 for that. And now you have a $150,000 investment that's going to save you about $1 million over a 10-year cycle.
So is it going to be like a one-time payment, like $50,000, and they get the service free for like ever, or is it like after that they're supposed to pay like a percentage?
So the beauty in this is that those skills always change, right? So the market changes, the model changes. So that's the development fee is always negotiable, and then there's going to be a separate maintenance fee where we'll either bake in some hours every month, or we'll be on call.
It makes sense. And how do people approach you?
So living.ai, Dr. Lee at living.ai. Yes, DRLEE at LVNG.ai.
Thank you so much for that.
You were talking about, having an understanding of a topic, and then you're bringing in AI into it, right? But for someone like us who has done masters in AI and our specialization is in AI, thinking of learning about medicine or law, it's like, oh no, I got to do another degree for it, or how do I even begin learning about these things, learning about these different domains?
That's a tough question. And I'm not sure if I'm going to have a good answer for that.
Okay.
I will tell you honestly that I have always started with maybe I've been fortunate to do this, but I've always started with my passions, things that I was interested in, medicine and just things I'm naturally curious about already, science. And then from there, even in your day-to-day life, right? Things that I found to be a nuisance, and I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do that. I don't need a degree in that. For instance, for my wife's an attorney. She's an attorney. And I'm not interested in the law. I don't want to be a lawyer. I'm definitely not going to law school. But I'm looking at what she's doing and talking to her and realizing that, man, there's a lot of things, from a paralegal's perspective. I'm not saying that we replace paralegals, but I'm saying there's a lot that you can do to automate that.
Right.
And so taking that problem domain and realizing that, man, that problem exists, throughout law. I don't need to be a specialist in it. I just need to understand that problem well enough so that I can apply my AI knowledge to build paralegal agents.
This is where it gets interesting, because if you want to know more about the problem, you actually need to have the domain knowledge about it.
That's the catch-22. That is, yeah. And that's the reason why AI engineers are always paid less than data scientists, because the data scientist understands the business and the business value and the role that AI plays in there. The AI engineer just knows the technology. So their entire career is going to be spent with somebody else doing the thinking and solving the business problem, and then coming to you, because that's the valuable part right there. Then they come down to the AI engineer and say, I've already done the thinking, I just need you to do the implementation. That's a less value. I'm not saying it's not valuable, but it's less valuable than the data scientist. And it's the exact same thing that we're saying here. You need to have some domain knowledge in order for you to understand the gaps and the problems that exist. But once you understand the gaps and the problems that exist, then there's an opportunity for you to monetize that. And that's really a choice that everybody has to make.
Okay. So as a master's student myself, when I started this journey, I was questioning what would be myself after graduating, or what would I be doing. So in a company, what kind of value would I be adding to them? And seeing myself doing automation was not exactly my point of view of studying this, right?
Yeah.
So I was kind of exploring the different roles that are available in the companies. And one such interesting role I found was system architects. Usually they address the problem in the front end. So I want your particular advice on how do I guide myself throughout this journey and get myself over there, because I don't see in any university, they don't teach us how to be a system architect directly, right? They just teach us the fundamental basics, and we need to build over that. And so how do I put myself to a company saying that, okay, I can be a system architect for you, rather than going from the developer's ladder?
And continuing to that question. So he has one more year to graduate. I'm graduating today.
Yes.
So-
Congratulations, by the way, too.
Thank you. So now, in my case, I have 3 months.
Uh-huh.
I want you to give me a 90-day plan.
Yeah.
For me to get a job by
Yeah.
the end of these 3 months.
So it's
But-
two separate answers. So you
Got
can
it.
take your time.
You can take your
Okay. All right, so I might have to, okay, so I'm going to answer your question first. Okay, so actually, ask your question one more time,
Yeah,
Summer.
I can do that. I'll just keep it shorter.
Yeah.
So as a student, what do I do to everyone in general
Sure.
to get to the desired position in a company which they're more interested in, rather than going through the developer's ladder, like in the sense
I see.
of joining as a developer and then building themselves up to that point.
Got it. Okay. So there's a concept in human resources called human capital. And human capital basically means what is your value to the business is what that means. And I think a lot of students have it backwards. A lot of students will come in and say, this is what I want. And business is like, we don't care what you want. This is what we need.
Correct.
And so if you reframe it from that perspective, what does human capital even mean? It means you have an education. So having that piece of paper, it's a credential. That's a signal that you have a basic level of competency. They want to see that you have skills. This is the part, I think, where students kind of, there's a gap there. Because just because you have the degree doesn't mean that you have the skills to perform in the role. The best thing that you can do for skills is to go out there and get your certification. So get a couple certifications. AWS has a solutions architect, a systems architect. They have all of these certifications out there. I personally think the schools should be paying for those certifications. Because that is a massive quality signal that obviously enhances your resume. And the third thing that they're looking for is they're looking for experience. And that's where it gets tough. Because you need the experience to say you have the experience to get the next bit of experience.
It's kind of an infinite loop.
It's the Bora Bora, the snake that eats its own tail. I mean, so those are the two things I think I see students missing. Get your certificate, even something as simple as Tableau. The Tableau desktop certification for a data analyst position is 30, 40 questions, and it's a 30-minute exam, and you have a major certification that you can add there. Get yourself some AWS and cloud credentials so that you can maximize the kind of surface area of the jobs that you apply for. Don't be narrow focused and try to get a data science job or an AI job because they're looking at PhDs for folks like me, right? They're looking for, so expand your horizon. Data engineering jobs are going crazy. DevOps jobs are going crazy. I mean, cloud jobs. I mean, expand your surface area. You already have the basic skills for that. Change your approach. They want
certificates, experience, anything else that you
education. You'll have that with your degree. So those are the three different vectors, but those are the things that people don't. And so for the experience, man, this is where I'll go back to my classes before I answer your question. In my classes, we don't have final exams. We have midterm exams, but we don't have final exams. We have final projects because I know that you don't have experience, but you need something to put on your resume.
Perfect.
It needs to go on your resume and your QR code. It needs to be there because if you go there and they say, have you had any job experience? Well, I have an experience on this project. I built an XYZ. Here's the link to it. Here's the QR code to it. And you can talk to it. As they're asking you about whatever, you can't say I was at whatever company doing it, but I did build blah, 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 blah. It was a small startup that we did. The startup didn't know what happened. That's a different conversation. It's about framing it, right? You frame it the right way. You don't go in. I see people go in there all the time and say, they sabotage themselves in the first 2 seconds of an interview. Well, I don't have any real experience. Stop saying that. Stop saying you're shooting. They didn't even ask you that. You just volunteered that. You say, I've worked on these projects. These projects was part of a startup. This is what we did. Then you start explaining it, and then they'll kind of get into it. That's a totally different frame. To your point.
So just a minute, before going to the point, I just like to sum up the things to the audience. So what Professor is trying to say to us is that experience is not something that you need to be dependent on the companies, but rather make your own startups with a friends of group. I think that's exactly what Dr. Fernando Coach as well said us, that we can be our own CEOs, CTOs, create an experience, startup environment, and market that to the people who are hiring your employees for yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now we can continue.
So concrete steps. This is not very popular, but I'll tell you, just like we were talking about marketing, when I learned that marketing was simply a numbers game. Once I figured out I can set up a MarTech platform, and once that MarTech platform was in place, unit economics said, if I can just drive traffic to that
Right.
platform, a percentage will always convert.
Right.
And I just had to make sure that I just kept stretching that percentage a little bit to maximize my profits, etc.
Yes.
I personally feel the exact same way about going out there searching for the job for the first time.
So it's a numbers game.
It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. I would go out there, especially if you have experience with Claude Code, I would get Firecrawl with firecrawl.dev, spend the $20 a month and use the agentic browser. I would get the Dice plugin, I'd get all these plugins for these job boards, and I would go out there every single day and I would go out there and scrape the jobs. You can log in with Firecrawl, log into these sites, get all of these jobs, come back in. You can marry the keyword density in the job description with the keyword density in your resume and have the AI match the keyword density so that if an employer is potentially looking at you or a recruiter is looking at you, the keyword density matches. You will show on paper that you're 100% match to help you get shortlisted. The AI can help you do that. And so you go through every job and you update your resume. So every single job, your resume is going to match every single job that you look in there.
Right.
With Firecrawl, you can also create your own customized cover letter.
Yes.
Do that. On top of that, with Firecrawl, you can use the agentic browser in there, have it go in agent mode, and you can have it literally apply for you.
Right.
Why can't we automate the process where we make a commitment to ourselves that I'm going to spend a week building this platform, and then every single morning I'm going to apply for 100 jobs every single day.
Right.
And then it becomes, and I'm saying 100, it could be 50, 10, 500, whatever, right? But you should automate the process. And I'm not saying just go there and blindly apply everywhere. I mean, there should be a human in the loop. You do need to go in there and make sure that there's some integrity in what's going on. But that process can be automated. There's no reason why that process can't be automated.
Right.
Once you get shortlisted, I'll see people also can't get out of their own way. You get shortlisted for a position, you get the opportunity to interview, take every single interview, every single opportunity to go in there. Don't look at that and say, no, this is not, don't do that. Don't talk yourself out of it. Every time that you get a chance to interview, just look at that as an opportunity. Even if you feel like you're not a best fit, you sit there with Claude, you get yourself prepared, you learn about the company, use Firecrawl. Use Firecrawl to go in there and say, hey, this is who I'm interviewing with.
Right.
Let me pull their LinkedIn profiles. Let me see where they come from. Let me see what kind of questions they might ask me. Let me see, what will resonate with them. How can I not be obvious about it, but how can I very subtly pull into the conversation that I have knowledge of this and that, and come in with your talking points of what it is that you want to say so that you can sound competent and know, even though you have an advantage once you sit down across the table from them or on Zoom, because you will already know them. If you've done your research, they won't know you. You'll know what resonates with them.
Right.
And so you'll be able to couch your answers so that you can be powerful.
Right.
But make it a system is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, got it. It's very great that we are able to automate all of this right now. But for a recruiter, if he's going to see an AI-generated copy of my cover letter, won't he be like, this is AI generated?
So it's going to be, okay, so two things. So number one, and it's the same thing when I'm in business. Like they'll always say, hey, I don't want to spend $100 on a Claude license.
The credibility of it, maybe.
Well, they'll say they don't want to spend $100 on a Claude license. And what I'll say is, look, you're talking about replacing, $100,000, $500,000 in just capital here with $100 a month.
Correct.
What is this problem worth to you to be able to solve it at scale? And I'd say the same thing. What is this problem worth for you to solve it at scale? Because there's two options. You can go in there and manually do this one step at a time and do it. But if you do that, then you're saying that as a human, there's only this percentage that you'll be able to hit every day.
Right.
Or is it better to go in and explode it so that you can have massive reach, and you go in and you're managing the process, but the flip side of that is that you might run across a recruiter that's going to say, hey, this was written by AI.
Okay.
So it's what's it worth?
It's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. So what is the one thing on a junior candidate's resume that immediately tells you that they are going to be a problem here?
So the biggest thing that I've seen is not even so much the technical side, because I believe everybody can learn the skills. It is, believe it or not, just the small things where, people have typos, or people will talk about things that nobody cares about. Like, I don't need to know that you were the captain of the scuba club. What does that have to do with, you being an engineer? I mean, it's totally irrelevant.
Right.
They haven't done their research, right? If they're applying for a position at my firm, and half of their resume is just stuff about them. Hey, I did this. Maybe that's a subtle side point that you put in, but they haven't done the research. They haven't put any effort into their this is the first thing that I see when I'm looking at their resume, and it needs to speak to you. And this is your opportunity. If you've gotten, my time, my time is valuable. You've gotten my time to look at your resume. It's not going to be about, me looking through here and thinking maybe this is. No, your resume has to scream that you are a match for this position that I'm looking for. For every position, there's going to be 20 or 30 resumes that I'm looking at.
Correct.
But I just see people don't put the effort. And if I see typos and grammar, it doesn't matter, because you're going to represent my company and you can't even get your own resume. I can't put you in front of my customers if that's the case.
So, in terms of the resume screaming
Mhm.
that I'm the perfect hire, how do we build those projects? Because GitHub probably requires 10, 15 projects of every company.
Yeah.
So how do we build projects that are generalized to an entire platform? And what are those projects that we could build?
You're talking about projects that will go on your resume?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest with you, with Claude Code and
Right.
knowledge of MCPs, you can build a prototype on almost anything
True.
in 24 hours.
True.
So if you're going to, apply for a company, number one, just make sure your resume looks professional.
Yes.
For starters. Make sure that your resume passes the keyword density test, so that, if I'm looking for Tableau is represented prominently and it's in your projects, etc. And put together a quick project in 24 hours, right? That you can build it. That's going to be related to something that the company might be interested in.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, it doesn't have to be something deep, but we can do that. It's real. It's credible. It's something that you can absolutely
Right.
build.
Makes sense. So if a student comes to you and says that they want to build an AI startup, what would your first question be?
Number one, what is going to be the value in what you're trying to provide?
Okay.
Number two, let me do a different order. Number one, who is the ICP? Who is the ideal customer profile?
Okay.
Who would buy this?
Okay.
Number one. And because I want to know, is there a market for this?
Okay.
And number two, tell me what the value is.
Right.
And I want you to quantify that value. How big is this market, etc. And number three, I would want to know, where do these ICPs live? So that would tell me where we would need to go to market. And then, because we're talking about driving traffic,
Right. Right.
driving traffic to them. And I would want to know, what are their unit economics, right? So if you only sold one of these, if $1 for every $1, how is that dollar split up? What are the unit economics? So I'd be able to tell if this thing could scale or not.
Okay. Okay. Student section.
Yes.
If you had to bet on one skill
Mhm.
that will separate the students who thrive in the next 10 years,
Yeah.
what could that skill be?
Agent development, hands down, because no matter what it is you do, this is the problem that humans have, is that we always want to be the smartest person in the room. We can't get out of our own way.
Right.
You even see when people engage with the AI. This AI has read more books than all three of us combined will have read in 10 years,
True.
but you still see people will go from their brain straight to the keyboard and talk to it. And when you do that, what have you done? You've just locked yourself in. The AI is going to meet you at your level.
Right.
So if you have biases, then those biases remain. If you have misconceptions, if you have misunderstandings, you haven't elevated anything. You've just gone from your brain to the keyboard.
Right.
But people that are wise enough to recognize that this thing is 180 IQ, 200 IQ, so you say, hey, I'm trying to work on whatever it is. You already are an expert in this from the perspective of an expert. How would an expert put together a 90-day plan to become employed? How would an expert build this, machine? Those people will be the ones that can have 10 times better output. And then what they'll do is they'll take that to say, this is what I'm trying to build. When I build software, because software is my thing, but same thing for lawyers, accountants, etc. I start by saying, from the perspective of an expert, I need a full product requirements document from an expert, blah, 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 blah. This is the tech stack I'm going to use. I need the full product requirement. And I just sit there and bang away at it until it's perfect. And then the very next thing that I do is I say, now that I understand the requirements to build whatever it is I want to build, now you tell me who are the experts that would be in a project like this that would build this. And they would say, oh, you need a UI UX developer, you need a Java developer, and they'll go through 5, 10, 15 experts. And I say, okay, now I want you to go in and I want you to build every specific expert as an agent. Boom, we put them together. Now I'm going to be the project manager and you guys get to work. Let's do managed teams. You guys get to work and then you communicate with each other and then you start to build it out.
Right.
That thinking right there allows us to solve any problem. Now take that same process and apply that to the legal community.
Yeah.
Now I can start to solve law problems or accounting or healthcare, or you just go right on down the line. So the ability to create agents will empower you. It will 100x your capabilities.
So in 10 years, will the fact that someone went to college still matter? Or will verified AI skills be enough?
So this is the knowledge tax question, right? So think about it from the perspective of a knowledge employee, a knowledge professional. What is it that people pay for if you're a knowledge professional? They pay for your information. They pay for you to synthesize information. They pay for your technical ability. I mean, there's like 7 things that they pay for. They pay for your relationships, right? One of the things that they pay for is its credential signaling.
Right.
So credential signaling will still matter. The fact that you graduated from a university, I believe, will still matter. Will it matter to the degree that it does right now? That's a separate question, because this is more of an institutional type of question where it's been out there. The universities can still mess it up.
Right.
But as it stands right now, credentials still matter. Like, for instance, for a medical doctor, I'm not going to a doctor that's not an MD, right? I don't care how good you are with the AI. I need to know that there's certain things that only humans, can.
Right.
So credentials will still matter, I believe. I don't think it will matter to the degree, and I think that if the colleges make the appropriate pivot, it can still matter because, like I said, if you have right now the killer skills are like an MBA with AI or marketing with AI or AI with, business skills, so yes.
Okay. So now we are going towards your research side of things.
Sure.
You have written about racism detection through AI sentiment analysis.
Yeah.
What did doing that research do to you personally? Not academically, but as a human being.
So this actually was part of my my dissertation work as well. So that's where that originated from, and then we got paid by a social media company, the biggest social media company, to do that racism detection research. As a human being, what it did, it showed me. Beyond racism, it showed me how bias, first of all, it comes from human-centered data.
Right.
And what it allowed us to do is allowed us to transfer that bias into a machine.
Yeah.
When that happened, there's this abstraction layer here where people trust the machines, and then they'll say, well, just because the machine gave me this answer, the machine itself can't be biased or racist or sexist or whatever. And so it almost weaponized it to a degree. And I realized it was a huge problem because you would look at the bias that comes from, for instance, if you look at one of the most popular data sets on this planet is the Boston housing data set, for instance.
Yes.
Most data scientists have heard of that.
Yes.
But if you look in that data set, there's one column in there that says B,
Yeah.
and it's the percentage of blacks that are in the neighborhood, and if that number is high, then the value of the real estate is low.
No.
It's undesirables is another, or I mean, it's just it's horrible.
Right.
But what that was doing is that data set, just for that example, was used to assess the value of people's property. And so then you have, minorities that were disenfranchised, that lost millions and billions of dollars in real estate value because of that. And now you take that and you put that into an AI and then let the AI start to predict the value of houses where it's considering, like, race, for instance, as one of the factors. And now you've amplified, you've weaponized that racism.
Right.
For that to come into focus was certainly disheartening. That's just for money. But then you start looking at things like where AI, and we've gotten much better, let me be clear about that. You start looking at ways that AI was starting to use things like race as a proxy for healthcare. So for instance, people that are poor are only going to go to the emergency room, right? Only when they absolutely have to, because they can't afford healthcare.
Yeah.
And so then you look at the AI is saying, hey, I'm going to predict how much money each person needs for their healthcare needs. And people with money and means, they go to the doctor. And so, then there's a proxy for race for that, where they will get more treatment, they'll get better resources from healthcare. And people that are poor, they kind of get disenfranchised a little bit. So to be able to do that research, to be able to bubble that up to the surface in my dissertation, and also to have the largest social media company on this planet fund that research, for them to play a small part. I mean, that being a PhD means you add a grain of sand to the wall of knowledge, but to play that small role in having them reassess their data process for bringing these into the algorithms, that was very fulfilling.
Okay. So I wish I could work on something like that. Maybe later down the line in my life, I'm surely do something like that.
I like the way he sees a problem and then, channels it into the particular place that he wants and then solves it perfectly. That's a great thing.
So, you research bias in machine learning models.
Yes.
How biased are the AI tools that students and businesses are using right now? Are they even aware of it?
So are they aware of it? The answer is no. I'll give you an example. There's a data set, there's an algorithm called Compass, the Correctional Offender for Management Profiling for Alternative Solutions. It's a nationwide algorithm that's used to predict whether, if somebody is arrested, whether they will recommit a crime if they're released. It's the Compass algorithm. They've renamed it North Point since, I believe. And so judges will use that as part of their determination as to whether they're going to release somebody from custody.
Okay.
I would almost assure you that most of the judges out there have no idea what AI is. They have no idea how it's coming to its conclusions. I would guess that they would say, hey, even the algorithm says that you are going to commit a crime if I release you. And so that's what, if that algorithm is biased, then it is just assumed to be correct. And that is a danger. So are people even aware of it? I would guess no, they're not. And then you can think about how serious that problem is if we start to take that same concept and do it and put it in things like drones, where we have the AI that's literally has life or death decisions where they can literally kill people. It becomes a serious problem if the algorithm is biased. If it's, if we're starting to put those decisions, life or death decisions, for instance, about whether people are going to receive medical treatments based off of the algorithm. If the algorithm is based off of biased data, then people literally die, because of the bias that's in the algorithm. And most people are just not aware. The good thing is that there are techniques that the industry has become aware of, where you can clean the data, so to speak, or during the training process, you can de-bias the models during the training process. So we've started to see a lot more of that.
Okay. So we are almost at the end of the
Sure.
podcast. You have built companies, published research, designed certifications, and taught thousands of students by now.
Hundreds
So-
of thousands.
There you go. What is the one thing that you have not done yet and you're still chasing?
Great question. So this is personal,
Okay.
but there's a movie called A Beautiful Mind.
Yes.
One of my favorite movies, and in this movie, what he wants to do is he wants to have one original idea. That's all. That's his whole purpose. And so I'm fine with the money. I've built my businesses. I've made my money. I'm fine with that. I'm happy doing what I do in higher education.
Okay.
What I would love to do is I'd love to do something. I might never get there, but legacy defining. I want to put out some research that's seminal research. I want to come up with something where people build entire industries around.
Mhm.
I look at, for instance, this whole agentic space out here, and the way that people are building these multi-agent systems is from the concept of a brain coordinating other brains.
Right.
Because that's how most people think intelligence works. But if you look at all of the biologists and psychologists, they know that intelligence at the brain level is just one form of intelligence.
Right.
We have this thing called basal cognition that has been around for millions, hundreds of millions of years before there was even the concept of a neuron.
Mhm.
And so if you take something like a cell doesn't have neurons in it, yet you put a couple cells together, then they can start to show signs of intelligence. You can have slime mold, and you can put an oat over here, and the
Right.
slime mold will
Good. Yeah.
find
good
its way
saying.
to the oat. That's intelligence. But we keep looking at these LLMs as being comparable to brains, and then there's lower levels of intelligence that solves problems that the big brains, the big LLMs can't. So I think there's a lot of space in research for people to build intelligent systems that's not built on the LLM architecture over there. So I think for LLMs, there's a lot of space to go.
Right.
But there's going to be a limit until there's a major architectural change. And I believe the major architectural change is going to be to build AI that can do things like that can operate like a cell, how your liver
Right.
has the intelligence in it to regenerate itself. If it's damaged, it can go back. There's certain lizards, you cut their heads off, the intelligence of the cells will grow it back, or a tail, exactly, that it grows back.
Right.
And think about how that can apply to things like microservices and architectures where you can punch a hole in it, and cybersecurity, and the whole thing it's not one brain. The whole organism, is the brain. So
Right.
that's something that I'm really interested in exploring, something just completely different. I think everybody has figured out AI. There's enough researchers doing agentic AI now. Now I'm looking at what's next, and that's where I'm putting all of my time and energy and research into trying to build a completely new intelligence architecture. We call it colony cognition, right? When you see an ant, any one ant, you're not going to say that one ant is brilliant, but you look at the colony of the ants and look at the intelligence that the colony displays, and to be able to build AI systems following that architecture is kind of what my life's work is about from here on out.
That's great.
So amazing. I think we had a really good conversation, and we both personally had a lot to learn. Thank you so much for coming for a podcast, sir. We had a really great pleasure having a conversation. Hopefully, we can get another episode with you with all the knowledge that you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure.